I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I need someone else to know what happened. Maybe because if I keep it inside my head for one more night I'll lose what's left of my mind. I've read enough posts on here to know how this goes. You share something, people call you crazy, a handful of others say they believe you, and nothing changes. But I'm writing it anyway. Because the alternative is sitting alone in this apartment with all the lights on, listening to every creak in the hallway, and I can't do that anymore. My name is Elias Voss. I'm 29 years old. I live in Oak Park, Illinois, about 12 miles west of downtown Chicago. I've lived here for 4 years, first with my mother when she needed help after her diagnosis, and then alone after she didn't need anything anymore. Her name was Margaret. Everybody called her Maggie. She had this laugh that came from somewhere deep in her chest, and she made her coffee so strong it could dissolve a spoon, and she always knocked 3 times before she came into any room, even rooms she owned. She said it was respect. She said a person's space was sacred, even to the people who loved them most. She died on the 14th of August, a Tuesday. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, diagnosed in March, gone by summer. We had 5 months. That sounds like a long time until it isn't. I'm telling you all this because you need to understand that what happened on November 9th was not some stress-induced hallucination. I was grieving, yes. I was lonely, yes. But I was not crazy. I was awake. I was present. And what I heard and saw that night was real. It was a Friday. I'd ordered Thai food from a place on Lake Street called Lotus Garden, Pad CEW with the thick rice noodles, and I'd eaten maybe a third before I lost my appetite. The container was still on the counter. The apartment smelled like peanut sauce and lemongrass. It was around 9:15 in the evening. I know that because I'd checked my phone right before, thinking about whether I should call my friend Derek, who'd been leaving increasingly worried voicemails. I put the phone back down without calling. I wasn't ready to talk to anyone. I wasn't ready to pretend I was fine, and I wasn't ready to admit I wasn't. I was at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee, strong, the way she made it, because I'd started making it that way after she died, going through a stack of old bills and documents I'd been putting off for months. Estate stuff. A death certificate copy. Insurance paperwork. A handwritten note about what she wanted done with her jewelry, her handwriting so familiar it made my chest tighten every time I looked at it. The apartment was quiet. I could hear the muffled sound of my upstairs neighbor Richard's television. He always watched something loud on Friday nights. The radiator in the hallway ticked when the heat came on. Outside, November wind came in long, shuddering gusts that rattled the window frames. My phone was on the table to my right, face down. So when it buzzed against the table, I noticed it the way you notice sounds in a quiet room. I turned it over without thinking. Just a reflex. Something about the grocery list, I thought, or a spam email. I looked at the screen. It took me 4 or 5 seconds to understand what I was seeing. An incoming call. And in the center of the screen, where the contact name displays, was a photo I knew instantly, my mother at my cousin's wedding 2 summers ago, her hair down, her eyes bright, that laugh caught mid-expression. Under the photo, in the large font my phone uses for incoming calls, was the contact label I'd given her. MOM. Her phone had been buried with her. I know this because I put it there myself. She'd asked me to. She had photos on it she'd never backed up, voice messages from her sister who died in 2019, things she wasn't ready to hand over to the world. She'd made me promise, about 2 weeks before the end, that her phone would go with her. I'd promised. On the day of the funeral I'd tucked it into the inside pocket of the blazer she was buried in, and I had watched the casket close. The phone kept ringing. I answered it. I don't know why. I think some part of me, the grieving, exhausted, paper-sorting part that still set an extra coffee mug out some mornings by accident, simply couldn't not answer. There was white noise. Not dead air, not silence, actual white noise, like a radio tune between stations, dense and layered, almost like the sound of rain on a flat roof. I said hello. I said it twice. I said, Mom, in a voice I didn't recognize as my own. And then, through the static, I heard her. It was her voice. I know my mother's voice. I have known it my entire life, from before I can consciously remember. It is as fundamental to my sense of reality as anything I have ever known. But it sounded wrong in a way I couldn't immediately name. Like it was coming from somewhere very far away, or through something thick. Like a recording played backward and then forward again, the words intact but the texture altered. Like something was wearing her voice the way you wear an old coat. Elias, honey, she said. She always called me honey. Never sweetheart or buddy, just honey, always honey. Mom, I started, and my voice broke on the word. Whatever happens tonight, she said, don't open the door. Just that. The static surged, a rush of white sound like a wave breaking, and the call ended. I sat there for a long time. There is a part of the brain specifically designed to resist impossible information. When we encounter something that cannot be true, the brain looks for rational explanations, builds a structure of alternative interpretations, because the alternative, accepting that something fundamental about reality is wrong, is too destabilizing. My brain did this immediately. A prank call. Someone with a voice modulator. A glitch where a call got routed through old metadata. A scammer using AI voice cloning technology, which I'd read was getting frighteningly advanced. My own grief playing tricks. I stood from the table. My legs were unsteady. I walked to the front door, 15 steps from the kitchen table, through the short hallway, and checked the lock. The deadbolt was engaged, a heavy Schlage B60N I'd installed myself because the original lock felt flimsy. I also put the chain on, which I almost never used. Then I stood in the hallway for a moment, one hand still on the door, and told myself I was being ridiculous. My laptop was open on the kitchen table. I'd left a browser tab open with my Ring doorbell app earlier, adjusting the motion detection settings. I noticed it because the screen had brightened. The Ring app was active, the live feed playing. The camera is angled to cover the small concrete stoop outside my front door, the 3 steps down to the driveway, and the driveway itself running along the side of the building to the street. It shoots in full night vision mode when the porch light is off, pale green and deeply shadowed. The stoop was empty. The steps were empty. But the fog. Fall fog from Lake Michigan sits low and moves with the wind. This was different. It sat still. Dense. Like it was held in place by something I couldn't see. I was still looking at the screen when my phone buzzed. Not a call. A text. From the same number. 4 words. Asterisk, it's already in the driveway. Turn off the lights, asterisk. I want to describe what it feels like to read those words. There is a moment, I think most people have had some version of it, a near miss in a car or a doctor's call with bad results, where the world narrows to a point. Where peripheral sound drops away and your vision tunnels and your body goes very, very still, like an animal playing dead. I felt that. I felt it completely. I looked at the Ring feed. The fog was too dense to see the driveway clearly. There could have been anything in it. I went to the living room window and stood to the side of it, the way you do when you don't want to be seen, and looked out through the gap between the curtain and the frame. The streetlights were on. Ordinary Friday night, not much traffic, a few porch lights across the street. I went back to the kitchen and searched the phone number online. It returned nothing, no carrier information, no name. A string of digits pointing to no registered owner, no account. I turned off the kitchen light. I don't know why I did it. It wasn't obedience to the message. It was more like my body made the decision before my conscious mind could argue. I stood in the dark kitchen with my phone and my cold dread and I listened. The radiator ticked. Richard's television murmured overhead. The wind pushed against the windows. And then the streetlights went out. Not just the one in front of my building. All of them. The whole block went dark at once. I was at the side window looking toward the driveway and I saw the last of the street light die. Not a power outage, the microwave clock still glowed 9:47. The internal power was fine. Just the streetlights, just outside, all at once. I stood in the dark and did not move. I heard the knock at 3 minutes to 10, by the microwave clock. 3 knocks. Light. Evenly spaced. The sound of bare knuckles on wood, the soft, specific impact of fingers folded loosely and tapped 3 times against the door. That particular knock. Her knock. The one I have heard 10,000 times in my life, the one she used on every door she ever approached, which she told me was about respect. Which she told me was about acknowledging that a person's space was sacred. 3 knocks. Hers. Exactly hers. Elias. From the other side of the door, her voice came through. The way she said my name, with the slight emphasis on the second syllable, the long vowel, the particular rise and fall that no one else has ever duplicated. Elias, open the door. I'm so cold. A pause. Why did you lock me out? There is no adequate description for what that does to a person. To hear your dead mother's voice outside your door 3 months after you watched her casket close, asking why you locked her out. There is no language for it. I stood in my dark living room and felt something happen inside me, not terror exactly, but something more total, something that reached further down, something that touched the parts of me that are older and more animal than thought. I did not move toward the door. Elias. Her voice again. Still her cadence, her warmth. But that wrongness underneath it, the quality I'd noticed on the phone, like something thick between the sound and me, like the voice was being filtered through layers of something I couldn't name. It's cold out here. You don't need to be afraid. It's just me. My phone was in my hand. I pulled up the Ring app with fingers that weren't quite working right. The live feed loaded. There was a figure on the stoop. Standing with its back to the door. A woman, in a dress I recognized, a dress I had specifically, consciously, painfully chosen, with my cousin Patricia's help, from my mother's closet. A navy blue dress with small white flowers, the one she told me she wanted to be buried in, which she'd worn to her sister's funeral 20 years ago and kept carefully at the back of her closet ever since. The figure stood with its back to the door. Its shoulders were moving. Moving in the particular way that shoulders move when someone is crying. And then I saw the hands. The camera is close enough to the stoop that I could see the hands clearly. They hung at the figure's sides. Hanging wrong. The fingers were too long, not grotesquely, but noticeably, measurably longer than they should have been, with an extra joint in each one, an extra bend, so that when they curled slightly in the cold, they curled twice where they should have curled once. And there was no shadow. The concrete steps had their own faint shadows in the ambient light. The figure standing on them cast nothing at all. I lowered the phone. My hands were shaking hard enough that the screen blurred. The phone buzzed. Another text from the same number. Asterisk, don't look through the peephole. It can see your eye from the other side, asterisk. I was 2 feet from the door. I had been about to look through the peephole. My body had been carrying me toward it with that terrible gravitational pull, the part of me that loved her, that would do anything to see her face again, even through a tiny glass lens. And something stopped me. That message, or some deeper instinct that sat below grief and love and everything rational. I stepped back until my shoulders hit the wall of the hallway and I stood there in the dark. The crying sounds from outside stopped. In the sudden quiet I could hear my own breathing, fast and shallow, and the radiator ticking, and Richard's television. All these ordinary sounds in a world that had become something else entirely. Then the voice changed. I don't have words for what it changed to. It started as her voice, asking me to please open the door. She was so cold, she just wanted to come in, why wouldn't I let her in, and then it fractured. The way a signal fractures driving into a dead zone. The way a recording deteriorates when you've played it too many times. It fractured and became something that contained her voice the way a chord contains individual notes. Her voice was in there, but alongside other things, other voices, 100 other frequencies, other tones that did not belong to any single human throat. It was the sound of something enormous speaking through a hole that was not large enough. And the scratching started. At first I thought it was an animal. A raccoon getting into something on the stoop. A light, rapid scraping. But it was too deliberate. Too patterned. It was fingers. Long fingers moving down the outside of the door, over and over, following the grain of the wood, and the sound they made is something I will hear for the rest of my life. I looked at the deadbolt. The thumb turn was rotating. Not the handle. The deadbolt. The heavy schlag that required a key from outside or a thumb turn from inside, and the thumb turn was on my side of the door, and I was not touching it. I was standing against the wall 6 feet away, and the thumb turn was slowly rotating. Millimeter by millimeter. Turning in the direction of unlocked. My phone lit up. The screen white and harsh in the dark hallway. Her number. A text. Asterisk, I'm sorry I didn't warn you about the lock. I didn't know it could work that way. Go to the bathroom. Go now, asterisk. I looked at the deadbolt. The thumb turn had rotated maybe a quarter of the way. The bolt was still in the frame. Still locked. But moving with the slow, patient intention of something that had all the time in the world. The scratching continued. The voice outside, the chord of voices, the 100 frequencies wearing her voice like a mask, rose slightly. The way music rises before a crescendo. I looked at the bathroom at the end of the hallway, past the bedroom door. No window. A door with a push-button lock, but a lock. The thumb turn rotated another fraction. I heard the mechanism inside the door, the tumblers, and the bolt, making small grinding sounds of something being worked against its nature. I heard the final click of the deadbolt disengaging. I heard the door begin to open. The slight catch and release of the hinges. The creak of wood. The particular acoustic change of a sealed space suddenly open to the outside. And the smell that came with it, cold air, November cold, and something beneath the cold that was not anything I can name. Something organic and deep and old. I was already running. I don't remember deciding to run. I remember the door opening, and then I was in the bathroom. Door closed. Lock pushed. Sitting on the edge of the tub with my knees pulled to my chest and my phone pressed against my heart, screen dark, in the dark. I listened to my apartment for the rest of the night. The police came at 7 in the morning. Derek had called them when I stopped responding to texts. I'd managed to send him something incoherent around 3 a.m., something about not being okay, and by 6 he'd decided to call Oak Park PD for a welfare check. When they knocked on the bathroom door I didn't come out for another 20 minutes. I made them talk to me through it before I believed they were real. My front door was open when they arrived. The deadbolt was disengaged. The chain, which I had put on, was not broken. It was unhooked. As if someone had reached inside and carefully lifted it free. They found nothing else. No evidence of entry. No sign of anyone having been in the apartment. The officer who spoke to me was patient and kind. He called it a panic attack. He said grief does strange things and left me a number for a counselor. I found 3 marks on the outside of my front door. Long and parallel. The wood was gouged, clean cuts, the kind you'd get from something narrow and sharp dragged slowly downward. I photographed them. I still have the photographs. The ring footage from that night is corrupted. Not deleted, corrupted. The file exists but it won't play. Every recovery tool I've tried returns the same error, the data is present but unreadable, like something overwrote the encoding without removing the file itself. My call log still shows the call from her number. Duration, 41 seconds. I've stared at that entry more times than I can count. 41 seconds. The length of a conversation I'm not sure I had. I'm still in the apartment. I know that's the part people will question. Why didn't I move? I can't fully explain it except to say that it's her apartment too, in some way, and leaving feels like abandoning something I'm not ready to abandon. And because some part of me, the worst part, the part that will not let me sleep, wants to understand what came to my door. What wore her voice? What knew the way she knocked? What looked like her from the back except for the hands? The extra joints. The way the fingers curled twice where they should have curled once. I have not opened the door after dark since November 9th. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if whatever came that night is patient, or if it moved on, or if it's simply waiting for me to stop being careful. I keep the lights on now. All of them. All night. She warned me. Whatever she is now, wherever she is, she found a way to warn me. I hold on to that carefully, like something fragile, like something that might break if I examine it too closely. She knocked 3 times. That was still her. Whatever else is true, that part was still her. I don't know what knocked the second time. There's one more thing I haven't told anyone. Not Derek, not the officer, not the counselor I eventually saw twice before stopping. On the morning after, when I finally came out of the bathroom and the police had gone and I was standing alone in my kitchen in the gray November daylight, I noticed that the stack of papers on the table had been disturbed. Not scattered, disturbed. The death certificate was on top. It had been on the bottom. And on the back of it, in a handwriting that was not mine and not my mother's, in handwriting I did not recognize at all, were 4 words written in something dark that I told myself was ink. She sent us instead. I threw it away. I threw the whole stack away. I've told myself 100 times that I imagined it, that I was in a dissociative state, that the letters were always there and I'd never turned the certificate over before. I've almost convinced myself. Almost. The counselor I saw, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Ferris who worked out of a little office on Harlem Avenue, told me that grief is a powerful architect. That it builds things that feel completely real, sounds, presences, sensations, out of the raw material of loss. She said the brain doesn't fully accept death quickly. It resists. It looks for the person in familiar patterns, familiar sounds, familiar knocks on a door. She's probably right. She has a degree and years of experience and she's probably right. But she's never seen the photographs of the marks on my door. She's never tried to open that Ring video file and gotten that error message. She's never looked at a call log entry that says 41 seconds and tried to account for what was said in all those seconds when the only thing she remembers clearly is a voice telling her not to open the door. I still have my mother's contact in my phone. I haven't deleted it. I can't. Her photo is still there, that wedding picture, the laugh, the bright eyes. I've thought about deleting the entry 100 times. About what it would mean. About whether keeping it as hope or just the rawest kind of grief, the kind that refuses to make peace with permanence. My phone has been quiet since November 9th. No more calls from that number. No more texts. The silence should feel like relief, and it mostly does, except at night, except in the hours between 2 and 4 in the morning when the building settles and the radiator ticks and the wind works at the windows, and I find myself watching my phone screen in the dark and thinking about what she said. Whatever happens tonight. Don't open the door. She said tonight. Singular. She said tonight, not ever, not always. She warned me about one specific night, and that night has passed and I am still here, and maybe that's all there is to it. Maybe whatever came to my door came once, found the door locked, found me not answering, and moved on to someone who didn't have a mother who loved them enough to find a way through whatever comes after death just to tell them to stay inside. Or maybe tonight just hasn't happened yet. I sleep with the lights on. Every light in the apartment. I have not used the chain since that night, not because I don't want the protection but because I watched it come unhooked from the inside, and I know now what that means and what it doesn't mean. The deadbolt I use. The deadbolt I trust a little less than I used to. I check the ring feed before I go to bed each night. The stoop is always empty. The driveway is always empty. The fog, when it comes, moves the way fog is supposed to move. But last Thursday, 4 days ago, which is why I'm writing this now, why I finally sat down and typed all of this out, I checked the feed before bed and the stoop was empty and the driveway was empty and everything was fine, and I was about to close the app when I noticed the timestamp on the live feed was wrong. Not the date. The date was correct. But the time was running backward. Just by a few seconds, just barely, like a clock that had been set slightly off and was correcting itself slowly, second by second, unhappening. I watched it for a long time. Then it corrected itself. The timestamp synced. Everything was normal. I closed the app and put my phone face down on the table and went to bed with all the lights on, and I did not sleep. If something happens, if I stop posting, if this account goes quiet, I need someone to know that the door was locked. I need someone to know I didn't open it willingly. I need someone to know that she tried to warn me, and that she knocked 3 times, and that 3 times was still her. Whatever comes next, I'll know the difference. I think I'll know the difference.